My cognition directed my research attention to analyze the statement, although artifact is perceived as an artificial product and artifact is an object produced or shaped by human craft, yet they are influenced by sense of perception and philosophy within every cultural space. In this environment, through my lens as an author, student of film, media arts specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, and publisher, there seems to be a relationship existing between aesthetics, artifacts, and culture are as old as Methuselah. The aforesaid positive theory will be analyzed so as to determine whether the pleasant, positive, or artful appearance of an artifact, and culture is a philosophical study of beauty and taste are interpreted and evaluated within the preceding period of human history for centuries within the context with the following: the Colosseum in Rome, the old Castillo on the sea located in Rapallo, Italy, St. John's Parish Church in Barbados, Anthony Gaudi's work in Spain, which are cultural artifacts and are everlasting objects symbolizing the life and accomplishments of an individual, bringing meaning and understanding to future generations of those who have come before, while the monolithic Jurassic limestone promontory, the Rock, located in Gibraltar in the Iberian Peninsula. The aforementioned declaration is perceived as a cultural aesthetic and stand indeed as the embodiment of such beliefs. The aforesaid also becomes a physical statement of personal and cultural beliefs about human place in the world. Maybe this ethos is part of the reason for the methods applied by the various artisans, namely architects and sculptors and cultural practitioners, representing their various countries in their works, somehow influences the way that culturally impacted viewers perceived and appreciate buildings, cultural symbols, monuments, statues, and all relevant artifacts. The definition culture applied in this discourse is observed through James Dease's lens. Dease makes the point that material culture is not culture, but its product. Culture is socially transmitted rules for behavior, ways of thinking about and looking things. Culture, whether it is language, religion, or law, is learned and reflected in the way we shape our physical world. There has been controversy about the real identity of the architect of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. For many years, the design was attributed to Guglielmo and Buonanno Pisano, a well-known 12th century resident artist of Pisa, known for his bronze casting, particularly in the Pisa Duomo. A 2001 study seems to indicate that the Ditto Savelli was the original architect due to the time of construction and an affinity with other Ditto Savelli works, notably the bell tower of San Nicola and the baptistry, both in Pisa. Of note, during World War II, the Allies suspected that the Germans were using the tower as an observation post, Leon Weckstein, a U.S. Army sergeant sent to confirm the presence of German troops in the tower, was impressed by the aesthetics and beauty of the cathedral and a freestanding bell tower, and thus refrained from ordering an artillery strike, sparing it from destruction. Through the lens of research and the annals of history, it is evident that numerous efforts have been made to restore the tower to a vertical orientation, or at least keep it from falling over. Most of these efforts fail. Some worsen the tilt. On the 27th of February 1964, the government of Italy requested aid in preventing the tower from toppling. It was, however, considered important to retain the current tilt due to the role that this element played in promoting the tourism industry of Pisa. Starting in 1993, 870 tons of lead counterweights were added, which straightened the tower slightly. The tower and the neighboring cathedral, baptistry, and cemetery are included in the Pisa del Duomo UNESCO World Heritage Site, which was declared in 1987. The tower began to sink after construction had progressed to the second floor in 1178. The Leaning Tower of Pisa, or simply the Tower of Pisa, is the freestanding bell tower of the Cathedral of the Italian city of Pisa, known worldwide for its nearly 4-degree lean, and is the third oldest structure in the city's cathedral square. The height of the tower is 55.86 meters or 183.27 feet from the ground on the low side, and 56.67 meters or 185.93 feet on the high side. The width of the walls at the base is 2.44 meters. Its weight is estimated at 14,500 metric tons. The tower has 296 or 294 steps. The 7th floor has 2 fewer steps on the north-facing staircase. The tower began to lean during construction in the 12th century due to soft ground which could not properly support the structure's weight, and it worsened through the completion of the construction in the 14th century. By 1990, the tilt had reached 5.5 degrees. Although the Colosseum located in Rome had arches which were aesthetically pleasing, yet they represented symbolic culture. Symbolic culture connotes non-material culture. It is the ability to learn and transmit behavioral transitions from one generation to the next by the invention of things that exist entirely in the symbolic realm, according to Wikipedia. The Colosseum, largely built using arches, was designed by the Flavian emperors to convince the people that their emperor cared about them. When an emperor had been victorious in war, he commissioned a triumphal arch that all his troops would march under the official declare their victory to the city. The most prominent features of the Colosseum are its columns and arches. Suitably for the great city, it was the largest amphitheater in the Roman world, capable of holding some 50,000 spectators. Eventually, there were well over 250 amphitheaters in the Roman Empire. So it is no surprise that the amphitheater and its associated shows are the quintessential symbols of Roman culture. The Colosseum has gone through many changes, and what we see now is approximately a third of its original dimensions. It was the core of Romans' social life for over 5 centuries, but its decline began in the 7th century AD when the massive stones of which it is made were displaced to build Rome's new palaces. The Colosseum is as old as Methuselah. The Colosseum stands today as a symbol of the power, genius, and brutality of the Roman Empire. In the imperial era, amphitheaters became an integral part of the Roman urban landscape. As cities vied with each other for preeminence in civic buildings, amphitheaters became even more monumental in scale and ornamentation. The elliptical architecture of an amphitheater is meant to facilitate visibility from every seat in the arena. The exterior facade of the Colosseum consists of 4 levels, which the bottom 3 levels compose of 80 arches each. Structurally speaking, the arches make possible the immense size of the structure. Rapallo was originally a traditional harbor town in the Liguria region and is now the largest and most important seaside resort on the Mediterranean coast in northwest Italy. It is situated on the Gulf of Titulio, the northeast of the Portofino Peninsula. The coastline of Rapallo stretches almost 4 kilometers along the sea and is characterized by beaches with the lack of pronounced steep shores, central promenade near the historical center, and port located in the southern part of the coast of Rapallo. Rapallo has 38 famous Italian castles. Rapallo Castle, built overlooking the sea in the middle of the Gulf of Rapallo. The castle has a compact structure, rectangular with rounded corners, dominated by a massive built overlooking the sea in the middle of the Gulf of Rapallo, which rises from the land side. The entrance to the fortress is secured by a stone staircase. The small belfry is located in an elevated position to the right of the entrance, and on the side diametrically opposite a small sentry box leans on the sea. Anna Murula has argued that when you walk on the promenade over the sea in Rapallo, what immediately comes to your eyes is the symbol of this small town, its own castle Castillo. It stands there on the rocks surrounded by the sea as the guardian of the pictorial town of Rapallo. But having a look back in the Liguria history, you will realize that this building was constructed just for this purpose, to defend the city from the numerous pirate invasions. Nowadays, after a recent renovation, it is used for cultural and artistic exhibitions. The Castile is located right on the town's seafront and is built entirely of stone with walls that are over 2 meters thick. Early in July, the castle is theater of a wonderful fireworks show. It is the highest point of festivity in honor of the Holy Virgin of Montelegro, whose shrine has been built on a hill bearing the same name, and that can be reached by a funiculaire. The modern name Gibraltar is a derivation of the older name Jebel Tariq, meaning Tariqs occupied Gibraltar for over 750 years until finally ousted by the Catholic monarchs in 1462 during the 8th siege of Gibraltar, which formed part of the Reconquest. Surviving structures from this period include parts of the Lion Wall, Moorish Castle, and the Moorish Baths located within the Gibraltar National Museum building. The Gibraltar National Museum has advocated that the Rock of Gibraltar is a Jurassic limestone promontory formed from the shells of a tiny sea creatures which compacted layer upon layer on the seabed some 200 million years ago. Between 60 and 20 million years ago, movement of the Earth's tectonic plates uplifted these layers of rock to their present position, where they have been shaped by the sea and weather to give the Rock of Gibraltar the iconic form we all recognize today. Gibraltar was first inhabited over 50,000 years ago by Neanderthals, and many have been one of their last places of habitation before they died out around 24,000 years ago. Gibraltar's recorded history began around 950 BC with the Phoenicians who lived nearby. Gibraltar is a heavily fortified British air and naval base that guards the Strait of Gibraltar, which is the only entrance to the Mediterranean Sea from the Atlantic Ocean. Since the 18th century, Gibraltar has been a symbol of British naval strength and is commonly known in the context as the Rock. St. John's Parish Church in Barbados is the first church of St. John that is presumed to have been a simple wooden building, but its date is unknown. The parish, along with St. George, was carved out of St. Michael in 1640 and 1641. But successive churches were badly damaged by the hurricane of 1675, the Great Hurricane of 1780, and finally destroyed by the Great Barbados Hurricane of 1831. The present church building, the fifth, was built in 1836 and the chancel added in 1876. It is the prototype of the restrained Barbadian version of the Gothic parish church and a beautiful West Macott sculpture commemorating Elizabeth Pinder on the left of the main door. Presumably, St. John's Parish Church, located in Bridgetown, Barbados, was constructed in the Gothic style because the appeal of this Gothic revival, which after 1837 in Britain is sometimes termed Victorian Gothic, gradually widened to encompass Lower Church as well as High Church clients. The period of more universal appeal, spanning 1855 to 1885, this period of more universal appeal, spanning 1855 to 1885, is known in Britain as High Victorian Gothic. Overall, St. John's Parish Church, located in Barbados, is perceived as a cultural aesthetic on a collective art of work. Anthony Gaudi's work was influenced by his passion in life, architecture, nature, and religion. He considered every detail of his creations and integrated into his architecture such crafts as ceramics, stained glass, wrought iron work, forging, and carpentry. He also introduced new techniques in the treatment of materials, such as tricades, which use waste ceramic pieces. Under the influence of neo-Gothic art and Oriental techniques, Gaudi became part of the Modernista movement, which was reaching its peak in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. His work transcended mainstream modernism, culminating in an organic style inspired by natural forms. Gaudi rarely drew detailed plans of his works, instead preferring to create them as the three-dimensional scale models and molding the details as he conceived them. Gaudi's work enjoys global popularity and continuing admiration and study by architects. His masterpiece, and still incomplete, Sagrada Familia, is the most visited monument in Spain between 1984 and 2005. 7 of his works were declared World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. Gaudi's Roman Catholic faith intensified during his life, and religious images appear in many of his works. This earned him the nickname God's Architect and led to calls for his beautification. This contextualized positive theory, aesthetics, artifacts and culture are as old as Methuselah, is a framed close-up shot that provided explicit detail of the facts concerning the aesthetics, artifact, and culture are as old as Methuselah. This idiom means extremely old is a conversation, which implicates these elements, which have played and will continue to play a critical role in every cultural geographic space. Robert Stecker argues that the aesthetic appreciation of artifacts may contribute to a larger appreciative project and the understanding and evaluation of a way of life or social or cultural practices in which the artifact plays a role, while Patrick Jordan has suggested that culture may be linked to aesthetic preferences and that it is important to understand these links when designing products for global distribution. Aesthetics, artifact, and culture are as old as Methuselah, brings together practical and theoretical constructs and acts as a pretext to highlight the literal qualities, the design qualities, and the expressive qualities. Overall, the Colosseum in Rome, the old Castle Castiglio on the sea located in Rapallo, Italy, St. John's Parish Church in Barbados, and Antoni Gaudi's work in Spain are cultural artifacts and are everlasting objects symbolizing the life and accomplishments of an individual, bringing meaning and understanding to future generations of those who have come before, while the monolithic Jurassic limestone promontory, the Rock, located in Gibraltar in the Iberian Peninsula, is perceived as a cultural aesthetic. These structures stand indeed as the embodiment of such beliefs and becomes a physical statement of personal and cultural beliefs about human place in the world. Finally, this intellectual discourse, aesthetics, artifact, and culture are as old as Methuselah. Verbalized is my story, was captured through my lens as an author, student of film, media arts specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, and publisher, was framed in ISBN 978-1-63821-4717.